one of the many fronts in which the Trump administration is challenging pretty much everybody is Harvard. As you know, the Trump administration has basically gone to universities, gone to some Ivy League universities, and said that if you don't start behaving based on these criteria, and they each gave them criteria of what they needed to do, we will stop government funding. They did that at Harvard. They demanded they do it with the DI program. They demanded that they not bring in any students that might hold views about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that are anti-Israel. They demanded some changes to the curriculum and to the material being taught at Harvard. And Harvard basically said no. It basically said, we're a private institution. We can do what we want. And the government said, okay, but we're going to reduce our funding. We're going to basically take away $2 billion of funding to Harvard. These are probably grants for research and things like that. Now, and then today, the Trump administration announced that they are taking aim at Harvard's international students. That is, in a sense, they're not going to approve visas for students who want to come and study at Harvard. And they're going to start a process of taking away Harvard's tax-exempt status. And why take the tax-exempt status? Because the tax-exempt status, the government is claiming, is granted for work, if you will, in the public interest, for the common good. And since the stuff Harvard is teaching is not in the public interest, it is harmful, it is bad, it is wrong, it should not be granted a tax exemption. Now this is really scary in my view. I have no sympathy for Harvard. Harvard University is one of the bastions of the kind of ideas that have led us to where we are today. Harvard created Donald Trump, or created the environment that made MAGA and Donald Trump possible. I mean, that's a whole show just on that, on the culpability of the universities in what is going on in America today. They created the woke culture, and as a consequence, they are responsible for the backlash against it, but they've also been responsible for the curriculum, the way people teach and what they are taught, and just the general intellectual level in the country that has led to the unthinking zombie mentality of MAGA and of the far left. So they, in a sense, they deserve anything they get. And there's a sense in which, yeah, get Harvard, crush them. There's sympathy there. And after how they behaved after October 7th, absolutely, crush them. This is an institution with professors who are just, many of them, just horrific. And what they're teaching is destructive. On the other hand, do we really want the government to be in a position where it selectively decides what's acceptable and what's not acceptable to teach in America? Do we really want the government silencing or penalizing? And a penalty of making Harvard a taxable institution is a significant penalty. Do we really want the government going after institutions and taking away their tax benefits because the government doesn't like how they're behaving, because they don't do everything the government tells them to do, because the speech that they engage in, the teaching that they engage in is inappropriate, the intellectual is inappropriate? I mean, what's at stake here is intellectual freedom, including intellectual freedom to be wrong and evil and awful. So if the government decided, now there was a tax issue, if the government decided that universities should stop being tax exempt, all universities, if it decided that all nonprofits should stop being tax exempt, I'd have a hard time arguing against that. But to single out Harvard, to single out one institution, to penalize one institution, because they're not toeing the line with the administration, because they're not doing what the government demands that they do, is an affront to, free thought, free intellectual, thought, an affront to free speech. It's the government choosing the ideas that are acceptable in the culture and penalizing anybody who advocates for different ones. The same thing about the international students. The United States government can decide not to let in any international students into the country. It would be a stupid, really wrong, unjust, immoral action. But it's worse to single out one university and say, we don't like what you teach, so we're not going to allow you to bring in international students. At Harvard, international students make up 27% of the campus. And international students are probably among the few who pay full tuition without any government loans and without any government benefits. To single out an institution is to silence that institution. And it is, if you add this to the Trump administration's disdain for free speech, disdain for anybody who disagrees with it, disdain for anybody who's a foreigner, it really is horrific. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm sure Harvard will sue. Will sue both on the tax exemption issue and on the foreign student issue. I don't think they have. It'll be interesting to see if they sue over the grants, over the $2 billion of money, whether there's anything they can do in the courts around that. I do think that the IRS issue and the foreign student issue being singled out like that is something the courts will probably take up, and it'll be interesting to see how they rule. But this is a direct attack on intellectual freedom. It's a direct attack on free speech. And while I despise Harvard and despise everything they stand for and the speech that they engage in, and again, there's some good professors at Harvard. There's one or two good economics professors. There's some other good professors there. There's some decent people in the law school. There's some horrible people in the law school. It's not the job of government. It's not the job of government, left or right. And I know the left has done this as well. Left or right, to blackmail universities into holding positions that any particular administration is favorable towards. And remember, if a Republican can do this, so can Democrats. I wanted to say one thing about F1 visas. These are the visas that the administration is saying they will not issue for Harvard students. It is interesting that over the last few weeks, the administration has revoked about over 1,000 visas from international students all across the country. So there is a campaign being launched by the Trump administration to get rid of foreign students. And here we're not talking about just students who might have participated in pro-Hamas demonstrations or articulated arguments that are anti-American or could be conceived as anti-American. And they're F1 visa students. These are F1 visas allow you to come and study in the United States. They allow you to go in and out. They allow you to work part-time on campus, but not off campus. Your spouse comes in at an F2 visa, which doesn't allow the spouse to work at all. These are rough visas. I mean, I was on an F1 visa, and it meant that I could only work in a limited way legally. It meant that my wife could not work at all. somehow we managed even with 2 kids while I was a student, but it meant that you at least, yeah, so you can get scholarships and you can get other things, but F1 visas are very restricted. And they're taking them away for students without really giving much of an explanation for why. Over 1,000 students at 160 colleges, universities have seen their visas revoked, legal status terminated. And this is just in the last less than a month, since late March. No clear vision of why this is happening. The universities are confused, the students are confused. I think this is generally part of an attack by this administration on foreigners, on people who were not born in the United States, or people who don't have ancestors in the United States. They just don't like us. They want us gone. And they're finding every excuse in the book to be able to get rid of them. And, Trump once in a while will say something positive about immigrants. And I don't know, maybe, he's married immigrants and he's had immigrants work for him, and maybe he believes he has a positive attitude towards immigrants. Who knows what Trump believes. But the people around him are vicious, anti-American, haters of anybody who doesn't look like them and does not have their heritage. And I think the people around him have basically launched a campaign to minimize the number and influence of foreigners in this country. And, this is one of the most vicious administrations that I can't think of a more vicious, cool administration than this one. They just don't care. They just don't care.